Good evening, everybody. This is Alan Stout from the Music on the Menu radio show. And this is another one of my podcasts that I do outside of the radio station. I did one a couple of weeks ago when Ace Frehley passed away. And I did a whole bunch of them during COVID-19. And I did one, I guess it was about maybe 3 or 4 years ago when the Beatles' Let It Be documentary was released. So sometimes they're just kind of fun to hop on a podcast and talk about, the Ace one wasn't fun, but sometimes it's just appropriate to hop on a podcast and talk about things going on in music. And I finally got a chance to see the new Bruce Springsteen biopic, Deliver Me From Nowhere, which opened, I guess, a little over a week ago. I caught it on Sunday, starring Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen. And it was interesting because I didn't get to see the film until it was out for 10 days or so, a week, whatever it was. You see all the reviews coming in, and you see people praising it, and you see people criticizing it, and you see people saying they loved it, and you hear people saying they were disappointed in it. And I think I probably understand why some people were disappointed in it. I was not. I walked out of the film very moved and, loving Bruce Springsteen as much as I always have. And maybe even more, because I got to get a peek into a really interesting artistic point in his life. The movie, Deliver Me From Nowhere, it's all set around 1981, 1982. It pretty much opens with the River Tour coming to a conclusion. And that's important if you know anything about the trajectory of his career. That's important for you to understand the significance of the Nebraska album, which is really a lot of what the movie is about, is Bruce Springsteen's milestone 1982 acoustic album called Nebraska. At the end of the River Tour, Bruce Springsteen was right where he needed to be as a rock singer. And he had put out his first couple of records in 73, 74, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey, The Wild and Innocent and the E Street Shuffle. There are some wonderful songs on those records that are still a part of Bruce's playlist today. If you go to see him, I just saw him in Philadelphia last year. Spirit in the Night, Rosalita, some of those tracks are still a part of his set. But they didn't set the world on fire commercially, those records. Critically acclaimed, maybe, but they didn't bust through commercially. In 1975, he drops the masterpiece, Born to Run. It puts him on the map. He's on the cover of Time and Newsweek the same week, the first person that ever happened to. He is critically acclaimed. People that were a little slow getting caught up to Bruce have now caught up to Bruce. And as important as a record as that was, and as great as a record as that is, with Thunder Road and Jungle Land and Backstreets and the title track, Born to Run, the single, peaked at number 23. So he's in the top 40 for the first time. But he's not a pop singer by any means. He follows it with Darkness on the Edge of Town in 1978, which was, I think in many ways, a darker album than Born to Run. Has my favorite song on it, Racing in the Streets. Prove It All Night was a top 40 hit, but I think it peaked in the 30s, 33, I think. And so, again, building the audience, critically acclaimed, releasing fantastic records, but yet not over the top as a commercial artist. The River comes out in 1980, and it's a double album. And this is where Bruce finds himself riding not only the album charts, but the pop charts. The single Hungry Heart goes to the top 10, top 5. Big hit. Still hear that song on the radio, all the time. Fade Away was a hit off the record. Didn't go as high as Hungry Heart, but it was another top 40 hit single. And so here he is. He's got at that point, 5 albums out, and he's had a top 10 hit. He's playing arenas, and his live show, which is really, what he's all about, are epic. To go see a Bruce Springsteen live show, the marathon shows that he puts on with the E Street Band, they are mind-blowing. And so all of that is happening in 1980-81. Born to Run is already almost an iconic album 5 years after it was released, and he's finally getting some hits on the radio with the River album. And he's got this great catalog of albums where he could go out and just put together an incredible concert. And because he's crossed over commercially into the top 40 and the top 10, the record label is interested in what's he going to do next. And they know what they want him to do next. They want him to write more songs like Hungry Heart. And they want to take him to the next level and sell even more records. And that's what makes this movie so fascinating. And that's what made what Bruce Springsteen did after the River tour so fascinating. And that's why they decided to make a movie about it. Because the logical follow-up album to The River should have been Born in the USA. Those songs were written and they were being recorded around the same time that Bruce, in the solitude of his bedroom with a 4-track recorder, start working on something that he found much more interesting and much more fulfilling. And he was connecting with it in a much deeper way. And that is the album that became Nebraska. And it was not something that I think he set out to be an album, because originally he was going to demo the songs on the 4-track and then bring them to the E Street Band and record them in a big studio with the full treatment of the full band. But there was something about them that was really resonating with him. The echoey recording. I recorded on a 4-track when I played in a band back in the 80s. And you can make a pretty cool sounding recording on a 4-track. It's not a studio. But, if you know what you're doing, you can make... they're really there for demos. For a rock band, they're for demos. But for an acoustic artist, just playing with his guitar and singing, he was getting something he really liked. And ultimately, he's hearing that the label wants a follow-up and they want to get out on the road and capitalize on the success of The River. And Bruce decides, I want this to be my next album. I want these songs to be my next album. Now, he's simultaneously recording some other songs with the E Street Band, including Born in the USA, just as we know it today, the big anthem that it is, or protest song that it is, really, if you know what it's about. But that is really the crux of this film. It's that artistic decision to not go where you're supposed to go, not go where the label expects you to go, not go where your fans expect you to go even, but to go with what your heart is telling you and what your soul needs. And to see that play out, I knew all this. Nebraska was the first Bruce Springsteen album I ever bought. I was too young in the 70s to be buying Born to Run and Darkness when they came out. The first time I probably ever heard Bruce Springsteen on the radio was the Santa Claus is Coming to Town in 1980 or 81 when it came out on the radio. And so I saw the video for Atlantic City on MTV, and I loved the song, and I bought the record. And then I had a friend of mine who was a classmate of mine at Valley West High School who had already dug deeper into Bruce, and he's turned us all on to Born to Run and Darkness. So we got it all around the same time. Around 82, 83, we're diving in. Bought Nebraska, went back, got the older albums, and by the time Born in the USA came out in 84, we were all such big fans, my friends and I, that we went into the record store and we bought it the day it came out. But I was well aware of the fact that what Bruce did with Nebraska threw everybody a big curveball. And knowing how record labels work, I knew that was probably not an easy thing for him to do. And so that's why I was interested in the movie. And that's why I thought it was a great idea for a movie. And yet at the same time, I understand that's why some people probably don't like the movie, because they were expecting maybe, let's go see the new Bruce Springsteen movie. Let's see how he recorded Born to Run. Let's see him playing in stadiums for multiple nights on the Born in the USA tour. Well, that's not in the movie. It's about the River tour coming to an end, like I said, him gaining a lot of momentum, building up to that, being out there for 7 years pretty much in the public eye to some extent. His growing, Born to Run, putting him on the map. The River, getting him on the charts, on the top 40 charts on the radio. And then, when he finally gets there, deciding he wants to make a folk record. And I loved it. I loved that little deep dive into what was essentially maybe 1 year of his life. There's things about the movie that I really appreciated. His relationship with his manager, John Landau. John was a music journalist, and he had already written for Rolling Stone, and he was writing for some magazines and other magazines and newspapers. John saw Bruce Springsteen in 1974 open for Bonnie Raitt at a concert in New England somewhere, I believe, and he has, I think, the most famous line that any rock journalist has ever published. I've seen the future of rock and roll, and its name is Bruce Springsteen. That's how blown away he was by this Springsteen show. He was absolutely floored by this artist, and he used his pen as a music journalist to convey that to people very strongly. He felt so strongly about Bruce Springsteen that he gave up music journalism and he became Bruce Springsteen's manager, and that was more than 50 years ago, and he remains Bruce Springsteen's manager to this day and one of his best friends. And the relationship between John and Bruce in the movie I thought was beautiful. His belief in Bruce Springsteen is pure. It is authentic. His loyalty and his friendship with Bruce Springsteen are real. And when Bruce comes to his manager and says, this is what I want to do, I want to put this record out, as is. They tried tweaking it in the studio and beefing it up a little bit, and Bruce hated it. John Landau went to CBS. He went to Columbia Records, and he said, hey, this is what we're doing. They were not happy about it, but, John said, I believe in Bruce. My office, we believe in Bruce. Basically, he said what Bruce wants to do is what we're going to do. And I don't know if people understand how brutal the record business can be sometimes, especially back then when there was a legitimate record business and how competitive it was. But to take a stance like that, for Bruce to take an artistic stance like that, and for his manager to stand by him, and then for Columbia to say, okay, Bruce would not do any press for the record. He did not do any tour for the record. He did no interviews. They released no single. And it still was a fairly successful record. You know, it debuted at number 3 on the Billboard charts, and at least one song, Atlantic City, is a Springsteen classic. It's perfect. You know, that relationship with John, maybe it's because of what I used to do for a living, but when I saw the Badleys come up in the local clubs in Wilkes-Barre area in 92, 93, 94, and I start writing about them, I realized that Brett Alexander was the principal songwriter in the band. When I reviewed their River Songs record the day it came out, in my little circle here, in my little neck of the woods, you know, I tried to be John Landau. I remember I reviewed that record the day it came out, and I said, this is significant. These songs are exceptional. This is an exceptionally talented songwriter here, and this is an extraordinary band. And it felt good to put that out there and try to grab people's attention. And so maybe that's why I connected with the John Landau thing a little bit too, because the Badleys had a manager in 1994, 95. They had a good manager. But if they didn't, I believed in them so much at that time that I could have seen myself doing the same thing and saying, "Hey, do you just want me to just come work for you guys? Because we gotta take this to the next level." And so that's what John Landau did, and I love that relationship that comes across in the movie. Another big part of the movie is Bruce Springsteen's relationship with the woman he was dating at the time, Faye, I believe her name was in the film. That is not necessarily a character that was real, but it was based on some of the women in Bruce's life at the time. And I think it really was just there to show how he treated relationships at that time of his career, that he could only give so much because he was so committed to his work and the band and the songwriting. And so, you know, was he a nice guy? Yes. Was he a good boyfriend? Yeah, sometimes. He was a nice guy, you know, but he also would withdraw when things started to get a little too close because he knew he was probably going to have to leave. And so rather than just maybe show that in the film with 2 or 3 women around that time that maybe he dated, they just put it into one character. And I thought that was fine. I mean, all movies take some artistic license a little bit, some of them too extreme. If you know, I mean, I could just tell you right now, like the Elvis Presley documentary, which I loved. I think I saw it 3 times, and I own it on DVD. The one that just came out a couple years ago. That scene in that movie where Elvis, you know, goes on a tirade on stage in Las Vegas and fires his manager. That did not happen. He never fired Colonel Tom Parker while on stage in Vegas in front of a crowd of people. The Queen documentary, Freddie Mercury. You know, Freddie did not know that he had AIDS at Live Aid. He did not find that out for, I don't know, a couple of years later. And so, but they used that in the movie to make it seem like he went out there knowing that he was dying and gave out this magnificent performance. So, did Freddie Mercury give a great performance at Live Aid? Absolutely. Did Freddie Mercury have AIDS? Yes. But in the screenplay, did they move some stuff around to make it more dramatic? Sure. In the Springsteen documentary, they didn't really do that. It wasn't like they were trying to make anything more dramatic with this relationship. I think it was just there to show that part of his life and how he handled it. So I thought that was a really great way to handle that. And of course, the biggest relationship in the movie is the one with his father. And, you know, if you listen to Bruce Springsteen's music or you listen to his concerts, you know, he's never been shy about the fact that he had a very complicated relationship with his father. His father abused alcohol when he was young. He suffered from depression, paranoia. Later in life, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. In the movie, he comes across as sort of an old school, strict, stern father who could be physically abusive at times when he had alcohol, and not particularly affectionate. And so that is a big part of Bruce Springsteen's life, and it is still, I think, a big part of who Bruce Springsteen is. What was nice to see in the movie is how there was reconciliation, and Bruce, never alienated his parents. He took good care of them when he became successful. And there's a nice scene at the end of the movie, which I won't spoil in case you didn't see it yet, but it happens right towards the very end of the film after one of Bruce's concerts, and it's kind of that Field of Dreams moment. Hey, Dad, you want to have a catch type moment, where that maybe they've come full circle and that they've healed their relationship. But again, the thing about the film that I loved is showing the boldness, showing the creative vision of somebody, showing somebody that was struggling with his own depression and anxiety, which Bruce Springsteen has suffered from throughout his life. He didn't really reveal that to the public until a couple of years ago when he published his book. But now he's very open about it, so much to the point where he's okay with it being a part of this film. It is a snapshot in his career. And so if you're looking for a biopic, like the Elvis documentary, which starts off when he's a little kid in Memphis and ends basically with his death and covers all 42 years, that's not what this movie is. But listen, the Bob Dylan documentary, which came out last year, which I loved and everybody loved, ended in 1965. It's really only about the first 3 years of his career in the public eye. And it ends with when he went electric at the folk festival. I saw a Led Zeppelin documentary last year called Becoming Led Zeppelin, and it ended in like 1970. It was really only about the formation of the band and like going up to their first album. Like, it doesn't cover like the 70s at all. So if you were going there hoping to hear Stairway to Heaven and Kashmir and All of My Love and Fool in the Rain and whatever else your favorite songs might be, they weren't there. It was about the formation of the band, and I loved it. And I think I talked about that on the radio show with DC. I know I did, when it came out last year. And so, no going in. Like, if you're a Springsteen fan and you're fascinated by what he did with Nebraska, and why he did it, then I think you'll love the movie, and I think you'll love Bruce even more, because he just comes off as everything that we think he is, a pretty down-to-earth guy who follows his heart and cares very much about his music. I would say that if you're really just looking for some of that commercial quality of Springsteen, it is fascinating that he was recording some of the Born in the USA tracks at the same time. And so when Nebraska comes out and there is no tour and there's no press and everything, he is also kind of simultaneously and then immediately afterwards working on what will become his most monumental album, which is Born in the USA. And, I'm on Fire was kicking around already at the time of Nebraska. And Cover Me. And, how many hits were on there? Dance in the Dark came from that record. My Hometown. Glory Days. And so that album is one of the biggest records of all time. And that sprung immediately after Nebraska. And so... And you see that in the movie. You could see where that's coming. But most of it is about making that acoustic record and his desire to to stay true to himself, no matter what the stakes were. And I love that about it. I've seen Bruce Springsteen in concert, I think 11 times, going all the way back to 84 with the Born in USA tour. I've seen him at Madison Square Garden. I've seen him in Philly. I've seen him at Hershey. I've seen him at Penn State. I've seen him at the Tower Theater in Philly doing a acoustic show. And I've seen him in the biggest stadiums you could imagine. And, of course, I saw him at the Meadowlands in New Jersey, which was exceptionally cool because that's home. He is, I think, a national treasure. I think he is the greatest songwriter of our generation. And I really enjoyed this little peek into a very interesting time in his life. I also noticed, of course, that some of the people, even on my own social media, that are knocking the movie that didn't even see it, it's political. You know, if you're some people, if you're to the right, you're out on Bruce now. You've tuned him out because he's let his political feelings be very much known over the past 20 years or so. That I don't know. I mean, that's the world we live in today. But from a musical standpoint, he's among the best that's ever lived as a songwriter. And if you like Bruce Springsteen and you're interested in a little bit of how a record label works and how a band works and how a manager works and how you navigate all of that through a crucial point in your career, and you've got family dynamics involved, and you've got your love life involved, and all the things that affect all of us as human beings, and you can stay on point and stay focused and dig in your heels and say, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how it's going to be, and that's it. If you could appreciate that, then I think that you would very much appreciate Deliver Me From Nowhere. I hope they make more movies about Bruce. I'll watch them all.